30 Minutes with Ron. My name is Ron Gagliardi. I'm the host of 30 Minutes with Ron, and tonight we have two guests. Right over here is Tony Falcone. He's an interesting artist, and his wife, Judy Andrews. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
I'm glad to have both of you here. In full disclosure, I know both of them fairly well, and some of my comments might show that because I know a little bit about what's going to go on here. All right, let us begin.
Awesome.
Mr. Falcone, I understand that you grew up in Woodbridge.
Bethany.
Bethany. See how much I understand? All right, so you grew up in Bethany, but you went to school in Woodbridge.
Exactly.
Yes.
Went to Amity Regional High School.
Okay. And is that where you learned your wonderful artistic abilities?
Actually, I didn't learn, I even knew I was going to be an artist till I was about 27.
I knew that, but I mean, you didn't have any art classes there?
I was the kid in like 5th grade who did the maps, you know, because I kind of do artwork, but I didn't know I was an artist.
Okay. And Judy, how do you come into this? Are you local to the area? Did you go to high school around here?
No, I actually grew up in Southern California, went to high school there and college, and moved here in my 20s. But earlier in my life, I fancied myself owning a gallery in Hollywood. And I majored in art history until I moved here, and I finished my degree in psychology. So my art interest was latent for a long time until I met Tony.
And that was a good person to meet.
He was a great person to meet.
All right, so here's the story. You're not really an artist. You don't know that you're an artist, but you're good at maps. And you take on a career as a what?
Well, I was going to school, first of all, to be a business major, University of Bridgeport, and a school in Atlanta, Georgia, and I just didn't know why I was doing that, you know. So I ended up deciding I should figure out what I'm going to do in my junior year, and an opening in the fire department in New Haven started to look like it was going to happen. And my dad, being a captain in the New Haven Fire Department, said, look, you need a job, you need to get serious if you're not going to do school. So I said, okay. So I became a fireman.
Wow, that's a choice.
Went to the training academy and just became a fireman and stayed there 7 years.
You got to be brave to be a fireman.
Well, let me just say that our first date, I got to go down the fire pole.
Wow.
That's right. I said, hey, you want to try something neat? And I took her to the firehouse on Whitney Avenue, and it has a really great brass pole. Yep. And Judy did great.
That's the birth of pole dancing.
Yes, probably. They don't know what firemen do after
all. No. All right, so now I know a little bit about this part. I got this right, I think. You're in the fire department, and you decide that there's a wall, or somebody decides there's a wall that needs some kind of art on it.
Right.
And then something happens. A mural finds its way onto that wall, and
sure
you did it.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so tell us what happened after that.
Okay, I was really hating being a fireman because in 1974, when I was a fireman and a part-time, in my days off, a pool director at a country club and a lifeguard. And I hired this guy who was majoring in art. He was going to be an art teacher. And his name was Dan Dodona, awesome guy. And he said, hey, he saw me doing a doodle. You should do a mural with me. Let's do some art, because we were becoming friends. And I said, what's a mural? And he goes, oh, we'll paint on a wall. So I got into that. And then at the fire department, I had done a couple of outdoor murals, and this wall was looking like it was going to be a great mural wall because it was a brand new fire station in New Haven on Dixwell, and it was Dixwell and Webster, or Goff and Webster Street. Brand new fire station, giant blank wall. I'm a mural painter, so I convinced the chief, let me do a mural there, and that's what I did. I designed that to be 3 horses, life-size, pulling a steam engine. And it really was great. And that's how that mural came about.
And people said, what are you doing being a fireman?
Yeah, they'd come in. It was one of those classic, why are you a fireman? And I was actually trying to find a way not to be a fireman because now I saw how exciting being an artist was. So I wanted to do that full time.
Well, I've always wondered about this, Judy. Here he is, a fireman, bringing home a nice salary, and all of a sudden he says, you know, I think I'd like to be an artist. And they have a reputation for being starving artists. So what was your reaction when you came home with this plan?
Well, that's a very interesting historical question because I didn't know Tony
I
then.
hadn't even met you
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
yet. I met Judy in
Okay.
'79.
So he was already a starving artist.
I met him when he was a
Yes.
starving artist, actually. And I was just, you know, it took him a while to tell me that he was an artist. And when he finally showed me his artwork, I was just amazed that a person with that amount of talent was so humble about it and didn't even bring it up and tell me about it for months.
Judy and I met at a federal program called Ventures for Community Art.
Community
Improvement. And Judy was a job coach, and I was training inner city kids how to paint houses because it was right after the recession.
And you weren't getting mural jobs.
1978. I wasn't getting any mural jobs. I had just done the Cinemark movie theater with that big mural.
I remember
and I thought,
that.
oh my God, the phone's going to ring off the wall. This is so. And it was like, you know, filing your nails, and nothing going on. So I got this job teaching inner city kids and met Judy there. And that was like 78, I
Yeah.
think, 78. So that was a neat time too.
I got to go into something here. I grew up in Hamden and used to go to the Cinemark Theater and go up and down Dixwell Avenue and see this fantastic mural. It was a giant three-dimensional aquarium. And one side of it, the side that faced Dixwell Avenue, was this giant whale. And I thought, what a fantastic thing this is. I wonder who did it. It took years for me to find out who did it, because I'm not that good of a detective. And it was this guy and Mr. Dodona.
That's correct.
Yes. And there's a little story there, because you told me that the theater owner and the people who were paying for this wanted something on the rocks on the bottom of the aquarium.
Oh no, it was a classic example of we needed a sponsor because if I got a commission to do this painting, I was going to leave the fire department. So I wasn't going to have money, so I thought, well, let's get sponsors that would love to see this mural happen. So WPLR sponsored a good portion of it, and then my dad had said, I want to sponsor part of it. He was great, and my dad and mom. And then the PLR people said, you know, we got to get a promotion out of this. Let's get some airtime of it. So we all went up to Boston to WEA, Warner Electric Atlantic Records, and went in, and it was like that scene from Kermit when he goes to see Mr. Big. You know, you open the doors, and you know the guy with the cigar. And I had made a model of the Cinemark movie theater with the painting on it. Put it down. Everybody loves it, and so we said, well, here's your opportunity to. You know, it's all about saving the whale because the whales were in it,
Right.
and this is a great statement, and you'll get some great stuff from it, you know. And he goes, you mean to tell me I'm going to give you money and I'm not going to get something else from it? I go, well, you get the pleasure of being a sponsor. He goes, no, he goes, we got to put faces on the fish.
That's the guy.
Faces
Okay.
on the
Faces.
porpoises, and I'm going, okay, time to go. But then I thought of doing the faces in the pebbles.
Okay, so that was your idea, but in response to what they needed.
Well, was that or just walk out?
Yeah, well, you don't want to do that.
No.
Rock stars.
So I'm thinking,
Rock
we gotta
stars, excellent.
Pebble stars, rock stars.
Yeah.
So it worked. It was cool.
All right, so now we've done the first major mural. That was the first one? That was the biggest first major
That
one?
was only 10,000 square feet. That was one of the first big ones.
Okay.
But I had done other ones, the Bare Feet mural, ice cream cone murals.
Nice.
But the Cinemark was kind of like we thought was our magnum opus for mural painting.
But it wasn't.
No.
No. Okay. So did you continue just with murals? Do we get to the horse mural with the jockeys in New Haven, or did you do portraits in between?
Chronologically, the movie theater with the whales was in '77. Right after I left the fire department, I left and then started on that mural.
Mm-hmm.
The horses was in 1975 while I was still a fireman.
Oh, part-time.
No, I was a fireman full-time.
I know, but you were muralist part-time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And the feet painting was
But that
70.
was the horses in the fire department, not the horses on Sports Haven.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, yes.
So
And
Sports
the
Haven.
Sports Haven is 1995.
So you were a full-time muralist artist.
Yeah, after I left the fire department, I was
Yeah.
full-time doing that, and the other work was working with Judy, doing the inner city kids,
Okay,
teaching them how to paint houses.
We should tell the viewers that if you go into New Haven and you see these jockeys and horses on a building, this is the guy who did it. And you had to make little drawings and then enlarge them and paint them. And you have a special kind of paint that always intrigued me.
Right.
Tell us about that paint, because I've never heard of anybody else using this.
That is called potassium silicate, and it is literally like liquid glass. So when you use it, you apply it like you would paint, but it petrifies instead of normally drying like a plastic film. Turns back to rock so that it's totally water permeable, and in terms of outdoor murals, it won't fade probably for 50 to 100 years, and it will not peel ever.
Wow.
So that's Sports Haven's been up since '95, and still looks great. Just needs to be really power washing from all the highway.
Grime, yeah.
Tony really recently completed a mural in Hartford for St. Francis Hospital, Closer to Free mural, and he used that product there.
I heard about this Closer to Free because some
Right.
friends of yours did a video.
Right, Grady did.
Yes.
He's become sort of like my Padawan learner, you know. He's just a great guy. He's a great videographer, and we painted that mural Closer to Free, and he videotaped, and then we turned it into a little short video for YouTube, which is a lot of fun. He has a great soundtrack for it and everything.
His mom told me about it. Now, was there any help? Does he have a partner that does these, or was it that was just
Yes,
creative?
his friend Mike is really terrific, and they came and did we were on a panel discussion for Finest Hours, the mural for the Coast Guard, and it was on NPR, and Harriet Jones was the interviewer. So we're sitting on stage, and Grady says, "All right, I'm going to bring Mike and we're going to set up." So he had cameras set up in all angles, and so he turned that into a real nice little 45-minute, the entire interview, and it was
Excellent.
It was a great
Which
piece.
NPR ended up picking up and using as well. So
Yeah,
it's great. He's very good.
Yeah, that's a good deal. And his
Yep.
mom is justly proud.
yeah, good.
Yes. Anyway, so you mentioned the Coast Guard, and I've always been impressed by this deal. The Coast Guard needed a mural, and you submitted a bid, and then things happened from that. I mean, you've been like the Coast Guard muralist for some years now. So you've done
Yeah.
like 10 or 12 of these murals?
Well, go ahead, Judy. You just tell him.
Well,
I'm sure you were instrumental in getting this.
A little
Yes.
aside to that was that they had decided that the Coast Guard history was very unknown to people, and they wanted to begin this project called the Historical Murals Project. So they sent a national search letter out for artists to apply. So we got the letter because we were registered with the Connecticut Commission on the Arts. And I remember we had just purchased our house in Cheshire around that time, and we were stripping wallpaper. And Tony read the letter and threw it in the trash.
That would have been a bad
I said,
move.
You know, so why did you do that? Because although I've had my own career, I've helped Tony with his business since we met. So I'm kind of like the moonlight manager there. So I pulled it out of the trash and I said, this is a great opportunity. You know, they want a muralist. They want somebody who can work with a committee of people. You're very good with people. And Tony said, well, I'm not a marine artist. They're going to look for somebody who knows how to paint ships and seas. And I said, let's apply anyway. So take it away.
Judy's really the visionary here, you know, when it comes to being an artist. I think she's great. Yeah, so it's classic. Takes it out. I'm going, Judy, that's not going to be anything. And sure enough, we get a letter going, well, thank you for showing your interest. Now you get to the next thought.
Stage.
Next stage, why don't you send some work, slides in and stuff like that. Oh, pretty good. We get another letter back, and then they're saying, oh, you're going to be a finalist, and we want you to make a presentation at the Academy. And thanks to Judy, here we've been working with them for 15 years.
No, thanks to Tony. I just, you know, that talent had to be out there.
Let's call it Joni.
You know what? I like that.
So we've done 10-foot canvases of the history from 1940 to 2001, and each theme would be a dramatic rescue or a part in history that, like 1940 would be helping troops across for a convoy escort. encountering a German U-boat and ramming it and sinking it, and the Coast Guard did that. Nobody knows that. And Coast Guard landed our troops at Omaha Beach on D-Day, and no one knows that.
Never knew that.
And it just goes on, so it's a great project all about the history of the Coast Guard from 40 to 2001.
One of the first paintings that Tony did in that series was a painting of 9/11, because right after the towers went down, the Coast Guard organized the evacuation of 600,000 people from Lower Manhattan in like 24 hours, and it's the single most the largest evacuation in history.
In maritime history, 600,000 people that day.
Wow.
So we did a painting of that. And then we've done another mural. We did a mural called Cadet's Journey, which I'm really proud of. It's a mural in a community room in the Coast Guard Alumni Center. And it shows the life of a Coast Guard person through what they encounter, maybe a book, the books they had to study, the compasses they had to learn, the sextants, and it's just like a big still life of trompe-l'oeil. And
You're very good at trompe-l'oeil.
Yeah.
Judy, could you explain what trompe-l'oeil is for those of us
Yes,
who may not know?
trompe-l'oeil is a French phrase that basically means fool the eye deceived. And a trompe-l'oeil painting will typically look real, three-dimensional, and you'll want to walk up and take something off the shelf, only to find out that you've, hit your fingers against the wall, because it's not three-dimensional; it's just two-dimensional. But so this is a three-dimensional looking mural of objects that are important to the history of the Coast Guard.
I've seen this; it's amazing. And the one I've seen, the 9/11, is that in a special place? Is that in D.C.? Is that the one that went to D.C.?
Well, we did an exact copy of it, large enough for public display, because the painting's 9 by 7 feet. So we did something that could be set up on like a stand, and it was there was an opportunity for the 10th anniversary of D-Day, so we suggested that the Coast Guard have this on the Intrepid Museum in Manhattan, because they were showing a movie called All Available Boats, which is what happened, and it was narrated by Tom Hanks, and it showed that day. So here we have that day of how the Coast Guard responded in this painting outside. So we were really pleased that they agreed to commission that.
But eventually it did go to D.C., so it's up at the Coast Guard headquarters in D.C. now.
We got to get your work on a stamp somehow.
Yes.
If you're listening out there, Stamp Committee, this guy's work should be on a
Well, what's
stamp.
interesting is that although Tony does monumental works of art, many of them are huge, he actually won a label contest for a wine bottle with a 9-foot painting. So the vineyard took the 9-foot painting and made it into a little octagon label.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's true, you could take large art,
That's right.
and put it on a small surface.
Now, speaking of large art, we have some things out here, some beautiful artworks. And that one talks about your murals, or shows your murals. And this one is about your portraiture. Tell us a little about those murals that are on that one.
Okay, I'll start up here. This is called Hoops and Hurdles, and it's a mural that is in the Floyd Little Fieldhouse in New Haven, which is right next to Hill House High School.
It's a regional field house.
Yep. And I wanted to depict high school sports, so I depicted basketball and hurdling. And then there's paintings. These are all on raised panels and canvas. And then there's paintings that wrap around, and it's the world of sports, and it shows like a tennis ball as a planet and a baseball as a... It's just like outer space with wonderful objects, all these baseballs and footballs and tennis balls floating. And that was... that was done about 10 years ago. That was through a commission, Percent for Art, which is a wonderful federal program giving 1% of a federal funded building to be mandatory that it goes toward arts, some kind of commission like a painting or a sculpture. This would be a private home with a bathroom scene, just wonderful sort of it's just something to evoke just relaxation. This mural this was originally done of the history of New Haven. It's a 22-foot painting on canvas, and it was commissioned by Burger King restaurants in downtown New Haven, right on the corner of Church and Chapel. And when the owner wanted to basically sell all his restaurants, and he's a great guy, he goes, "Tony, what can we do with these paintings?" I said, "Well, if you don't want them, why don't you donate them to someone who really could use them. And I finally found that Albertus Magnus College thought it would be great, and they have 2 large rooms, so we put 2 paintings, 2 different subjects, 22 feet. They were removable because I paint murals on canvas, and then I create a system where they could be moved and just replaced with the frame around them, and you'll have a mural in a new location. So that's at Albertus Magnus, and this is a trompe-l'oeil mural, like Judy was describing before. This is a mural that when you walk in the room, you get the feeling there's a trunk of a tree, and these are wisteria, and there's birds and butterflies, and so that's in a private home.
Well, how about Albertus Magnus? Can you tell us about this degree that this fellow has?
Well, that's a coincidence, actually. It was very, very nice. Tony, as he had said earlier, tried out college, didn't find that it was for him, loved art, without ever having been taught art. He does amazing art. And we got a letter one year from Albertus Magnus inviting Tony to be a candidate for an honorary degree, a Doctor of Humane Letters. And they had selected him from a pool of people that they felt deserved this award. So I can't remember what year it was, but Tony was given the honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters. He was in the graduation day parade. He wore the cap and gown. He has a beautiful stole at home with the colors of Albertus Magnus, and he has this wonderful honorary doctorate.
You are the first honorary doctorate person ever to appear on this stage on the 30 Minutes with Ron show. I am so pleased and honored.
Well, thank you.
I took him out to dinner that night after the event, and of course I made the reservation in the name of Dr. Falcone.
Excellent. Good move. All right, now we're going to get to portraiture, because this is a fantastic one, and there's a wonderful one sitting on the table. So let's get those 2 in.
Great, thank you. This is one of my favorite portraits. It's of Judy and the 2 grandchildren, Artie and Oscar.
9 years ago.
We were in a Cheshire corn maze when I saw this. Just it happened in front of me, took a quick grab shot, and I ended up saying, gee, Judy's birthday's coming up. I have to surprise her. So this is a portrait done in oil of Judy and the grandkids at the Cheshire corn maze, and that was a surprise for her birthday.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes.
The more amazing part, even though it is actually amazing, was that he kept it a secret from me. I had no clue. I was totally surprised.
Yep.
But the boys love it, and
of course,
our daughter and her husband love it.
Yeah. So. And then this portrait here, there's a couple of stories around this portrait on the table here.
Can I show it?
Yes, you may.
Yep.
I recognize that person.
I was hoping you'd recognize him.
That's Barry.
That's Charlie Davis.
Oh,
no.
yeah.
Yep. This is done in pastel, and just a wonderful story is I wanted to do something to show like the greater New Haven area that I'm really into portraits, because a lot of people think I just painted big murals for a while. And I ended up hearing about through our friend Leslie that there was going to be an event at the Omni. And why don't you tell what happened?
President Obama's initial inaugural ball was in this area, was held at the Omni Hotel in New Haven. And our friend was chair of the committee for that ball. And so we worked out an agreement where Tony would create this portrait of President-elect Obama, and then that night at the ball it would be auctioned off, and the money raised would go to the New Haven Public Education Scholarship Fund. So it was advertised, people came, and it was a very, very successful auction, and they made, they made good money for the scholarship fund. Excellent. And we worked out an agreement with them as well to make prints. So we have prints available of that.
Cool.
Is that your phone?
That's my phone.
How euphonious. Well, we'll just keep it going. We like to have a little background music every so often.
It might be a phone-in caller.
It could have been. Well, now, I want to make sure we get in this sculpture here. This is a sculpture of Otto Graham.
Yes.
And I don't think you knew you were a sculptor either.
Well, he knew he was a sculptor inside, but he had never had the opportunity to sculpt until a couple of years ago, and he had his first opportunity.
Yep.
And so tell us, sir, how did this happen?
Let's see. After doing murals at the Coast Guard for about 10 murals, and people liked that work so much. I got an email from a gentleman who wanted to commission this. It was just said, we'd love to commission you to do a bronze portrait of Otto Graham.
Tell us who Otto Graham is.
And Otto Graham is a famous NFL Hall of Fame football player, played with the Cleveland Browns during the early 60s, actually the late 50s, early 60s. Then when he was retiring, people said, what are you doing? And we know somebody at the Coast Guard Academy who said they really need a football coach. And he actually took them up on it, and they made him a captain, and he became their athletic director. And he coached their team, which was not doing that great in their division, like probably ever. He coached them to like an unprecedented season with no losses, no ties. They went on to their division championship. And so they loved him, and they said, gee, for our 50th class reunion, we want to have Tony do a portrait of him in bronze. So I said to them, Bill, that's so great, thank you. I would love to do it, and I think I could do a nice job, but I have nothing to show you. I've never sculpted before. And his classic answer was, you'll be fine. We want you to do it. And it just was really exciting to do my first sculpture.
It's amazing. Well, we're getting to the close of the show, believe it or not. I want to make sure that we get your website information, and it'll probably come up on the screen, but I wanted you to tell us about your website. So maybe Judy could tell us how that's going. We've got about a minute left.
We launched our new website in December of this year at our studio, and the website address is www.falconeartstudio.com.
Okay, and I'm sure it has different sections, right?
It does.
Murals and portraits.
It does.
Yes.
You can spend lots of time exploring all the different facets of Tony's artwork.
Well, you are both amazing. I'd like to thank you both for appearing.
Thank you, Ron.
I'm not amazing. I'm just magnificent.
There you are.
Yeah.
See, no, I can't have
All right, so thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you learned a few things. Thank you.